welcome back. This is my self-study therapist series, and this is my second one, and I'm gonna focus this one on explaining what Gestalt therapy is. So if y'all don't know, I just graduated from my master's in clinical psychology. I am an associate marriage and family therapist, waiting to get my associate number. Anyway, so today, yes, I'm gonna be talking about Gestalt therapy. I go to a clinic that's very focused on this type of therapy, so here we go explaining what Gestalt therapy is. All of these notes are from this one book called Gestalt Therapy by Dave Mann, and this is like basically a summarization of the first 4 chapters of that book. The founders, I put founders in quotes because they took a lot of inspiration from different places, so none of their ideas are original, and this way of thinking is very like Gestalty. Anyways, so the founders are Laura Pearls, Fritz Perls, and Paul Goodman, and they got a lot of their inspiration from Gestalt psychology. I want to take a note, Gestalt psychology and Gestalt therapy are not the same thing. The psychology part of it really focuses on perception. I think there are like lots of models and like images. It's kind of like the tricks that our eyes do with us. Gestalt psychology really kind of focuses on how our mind likes to seek completion, order, and simplicity. So that's part of like this Gestalt therapy, but again, it's not the same thing. There's also inspiration from Buddhism, somatic therapy, which is basically like sensations, like bodily sensations, and then existentialism as well. The definition of Gestalt, if you haven't already guessed, it is not an English word. It comes from Germany, and there is no exact translation in English for this word. Yeah, the closest that I think we could get is whole, totality, and overall appearance. There are a lot of analogies that are set up in this book, and one analogy that they used to describe describe Gestalt was like, imagine if you have a house. Gestalt is like your perception of that house. We aren't looking at the window and the door and the house. We're looking at all of it, and when we look at all of it combined, it is more than just the pieces summed up together. Another thing is like our perception of the house is very much informed by our culture, our background, and our experiences, and based off of these factors, the way that we perceive something is unique to us. So somebody else isn't going to have exactly the same perception as somebody else. They may be very similar, but because we all have lived through different things and come from different places, like our perception is always going to be slightly different. One thing that I will talk about very quickly is foreground, and yeah, there's a lot of like concepts in Gestalt, and they all just like piece together to form Gestalt therapy. Anyways, one like concept is foreground and ground. Foreground is like what is very present, and then ground is like the things in the background. Anyways, okay, moving on. Something also important about Gestalt is that it tries to really integrate the mind and the body. A lot of Western culture really separates the mind and the body, and Gestalt is all around like holistically looking at everything in its parts. So we really like to integrate all of our different senses, and Gestalt is very experiential, so that means there's a lot of experiments usually that happen in the session, and experiments as in like, hey, what if we try role-playing, or what if we try this? A lot of like trying things out to see how it feels. Not typical, I would say, of other types of therapy. According to some people, the 3 major pillars of Gestalt are field theory, which is basically examining how you interact with your environment. So that's kind of like in this example of the house, how you interact with your culture, background, experience, and like your relationship with all of those things. And then there's phenomenology, which is a big fancy word to basically describe your lived experience, basically like your truth. There's a lot of Gestalt on like uncovering like what, yeah, I guess like your truth, and not like denying certain parts of us, which we typically do in this. And then the third is a dialogic relationship, and this is describing the relationship between the client and the therapist. In Gestalt therapy, we really believe in like a collaborative environment between the client and the therapist. There's the least amount of power dynamic as possible. As a therapist, it's best, I guess, like if you're authentic and you're able to have an open conversation with your client, especially around like the relationship between like the client and the therapist is something that is able to be honestly talked about in session. I feel like if there was an iceberg, I literally touched the very, 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 very tip of the iceberg on what Gestalt therapy means and what it is. So this is just like a very quick intro to Gestalt. Like a very, very quick intro. I feel like there's so much more to Gestalt that hopefully I will get into in this channel, but I also know it's like a pretty niche topic, so we'll see if you found this video interesting, and yeah, maybe I'll continue going through this book and like summarizing the points that are made. Okay, bye!